Joining me now is Michael Weiner. Lots and lots of news stories today. Here's one. Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook said officials should monitor how unexpected losses in private credit may spread to the broader U.S. financial system due to the increased complexity and the interconnections with leveraged firms. We'll get to that. News came out today on Nvidia. I don't know whether to believe it or not. I don't see their books. I can only tell what's being reported. And then stable coins and Bitcoins. What's going on with that? I think it was Bitcoin falls today below 88,000 for the first time since April 22nd. A lot going on in the financial world. Markets way down today. I guess they started way up, and then way down. Let's get a take on all of this from our financial guru, Michael Weiner. Michael, welcome back.
Good evening, Brandon. There's so many stories out here right now, and some people are really coming forward. The situation with Nvidia is, it's almost like I could see this coming about a week ago when there's all this conversation. Nvidia is going to come out with their numbers. When they come out their numbers, if it's bad, it's going to affect the market. It's going to tear the market apart. We've got to make sure whatever's going to happen with Nvidia, all of a sudden the numbers come out great, beyond expectation, until somebody, by mistakes, and it's Mr. Robot, found out that Nvidia's numbers were not necessarily what they were supposed to be. These people in the markets, for the people who listen out there, your financial guys do not work for the market. They work for people that run the market, and understand that they have one goal in mind, is to keep the numbers as much as they can, even if there's no stability and strength behind it. And that's exactly an example of what's gone here. We are now taking that hit literally in the real end of the market because somebody got caught with their fingers in the cookie jar.
Now you're saying an algorithm, did an algorithm pick this up about Nvidia?
Correct. An algorithm, and it's robotics through AI. And they were able to do number checking that a human being might take months to do or days to do in a split second.
And what did they find? They found that they weren't what?
They found that they misinterpreted their numbers. They ran their numbers. So the company
is not as profitable as we're being led to believe? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely not. Not only are they not as profitable, but the reserves that they claim they have are not as strong even as Intel. The way Intel does with their net capital, they keep, I think, somewhere around 91%. AMD, about almost 94%. And that other company, the Taiwan Semiconductor, literally is almost 100%. Nvidia is around in the 70s. But they're made to, given all this credibility, all this AI connection, and all the rest of it, and all these people are tying upon that bandwagon, and that bandwagon is almost like the beginning of the internet. We went into the internet, and all of a sudden it was going to be great. And if you remember that company that literally bought out Time Warner with Steve Case, it was Time Warner was no longer in existence, and all of a sudden it was the company that Steve Case and his partners had that took over that. And all of a sudden, literally 3 months later, that whole Time Warner deal fell apart. And the AOL, do you remember AOL?
Yeah, barely.
They're gone. AOL bought Time Warner all on paper. All of those guys who did that deal should be in jail, including Gerald Levine from Time Warner, who got $140 million and then retired. And then they found out 3 months later that AOL was worthless. It didn't have any basis to anything they said they were doing. And Time Warner just literally unraveled the whole thing. It's a fact. Google it.
Wow. The views and opinions
of
Michael Weiner may not be that of the host of the network.
Exactly.
That's my discllaimer to cover my rear end. But
my disclaimer is we believe that that's a circumstance.
So Mr. Weiner, what are people saying could happen with Nvidia in 2026? Is there some kind of other report that's going to come out in 2026 that they're going to be required to report that might show this and thus be a bigger forecast of what's to happen to Nvidia in the future?
Well, I think a lot of the AI, what Nvidia has done is tied themselves up to a lot of other companies, including Oracle and including the AI company that's all over the place right now. And I guess my comment is that I think some of that will start unraveling itself, and when it does, the numbers will become more evident
Mm.
because those numbers based on their cash flow is not correct. That's what we found out today. That's why the market's down. So how do we move into the future? The problem is President Trump has got us so connected to Nvidia and what they're doing and tying everything else up with ChatGPT and all this other stuff going on. They're finding out that maybe they're not selling all these chips that they're selling. And I think some of these other companies that are really responsible are going to become more important. And I think that's why you have somebody, I think Paul, I forgot his last name, he just legitimately shorted Nvidia just because of the fact that he's concerned about that stock drawing back. So
Is this why the Fed Reserve Governor Lisa Cook said that we have increased complexity and the interconnections with leveraged firms? So you have to watch this?
Well, I hate to agree with her, but she's absolutely right. The thing that's going on with Nvidia is very similar to Lucent. And if you remember a company called Enron, that's called Who's Got the Potato. Enron was brilliant in one thing. What they did is they created all these LLCs rolling into each other. There was like 40 or 50 different LLCs. It was almost impossible back in those days for them to be able to run numbers because of the fact that legitimately it was so confusing. If you remember the chairman of Enron, and his name escapes me, the other gentleman went to jail for almost 10 years and then was pardoned eventually. But the chairman killed himself because he was just afraid of how the numbers would come out. And at one time, Enron was a golden child, and so was Lucent Technology. Lucent Technology was at the top of the world at one time, the number one telecommunications company. All done with smoke and mirrors. They're gone. And then another really big one was WorldCom. WorldCom, if you remember them, was legitimately took over and this is what really shows you the games that's played with the government, and that literally was Barack Obama. But WorldCom was a company that took over the commodities industry by storm. Legitimately took over part of the telecommunications industry with the takeover of various different telecommunication companies. And they were a company that had to file, just the way in the up-and-coming AI industry, they had to file what's called a monthly financial report. It's called a focus report. When you're a licensed company, even if you're Merrill Lynch or any of the other ones, you have to file a focus report every 30 days on the financial condition of your company, because hopefully you won't have a bankruptcy that catches everybody by surprise. That's the reason why they do that. Here's a big catch up with that. WorldCom, the chairman of the company, and you can check, he used to be the governor of New Jersey, and then he became the senator after that. He signed the focus report 3 days to 5 days before they went bankrupt, saying they were in great financial shape. And Obama gave them a total pass. They never went after him. They never prosecuted him. Quite honestly, Obama backed him to run for senator. And you'd have to look up the name of the gentleman who was the last chairman, and he was ultimately a governor and a senator of New Jersey, and his name escapes me. And he literally walked away unscathed just because Obama gave him a pass. So there's a communication by a lot of people about what went on today, that there is possibly a similarity at Nvidia to what went on in Enron, Lucent, and WorldCom. These fake numbers. And there's a concern regarding that, especially when everybody was waiting on the sidelines of the market for 2 weeks. Nvidia's numbers, that's all you heard, Nvidia's numbers. Well, they came out, they were great. The market went up this morning, big time. And guess what? It's down almost 400 points at the close. Why? Because that information that you and I know about was made available.
So let's look at this newsletter, the Abisasi letter, or whatever it is. Why are markets crashing? Our logical explanation. There's quite literally only one headline that can even be partially blamed for such a sudden market crash. At 11:20 a.m. Eastern Standard, the U.S. Labor Department said the November and October employment situation will be released on December 16th. By this point, the S&P 500 was already down 70 points from its high seen at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard. However, in the 40 minutes after this announcement, the S&P 500 crashed another 120. We now know that the Fed is effectively entering another interest rate decision with an economic data blackout. Markets do not like information asymmetry. But is this really enough to erase nearly $2 trillion in market cap in a matter of minutes? In our view, this was just the switch that shifted sentiment. The reality is that investors are on the edge in this market. When a sudden decline begins, investors rush to the exit because the bubble's popping. That's what they think. This works in the opposite direction as well. When stocks surge, the rally accelerates quickly as capital rotates back into all AI stocks because AI is the next big thing. The reality is that we now live in a market where any headline can drive trillions of dollars of market cap in a matter of minutes for one sole reason. Sentiment is more polarized than ever. You agree with that, Michael?
Totally. I mean, it's just right now what they're doing is it's a juggling act. And that's why we had talked on the show the other day about the repo market in the banks. One of the biggest concerns, and by the way, time out, but the gentleman who was a governor who was the chairman of WorldCom was John Corzine. And then what Obama did, not only gave him a pass for fraud, he should have gone to jail because he signed a fraudulent document.
In your opinion. In my opinion. Add the in the opinion. Yeah. We had that, by the way, just so people know, we had that.
In the industry's opinion of many, let's just say he stepped a little bit off the line. Obama backed him and he became the senator after that. So I guess, what the heck. We had a lot of interesting senators from New Jersey. But getting back to this, they're having a meeting in jail, I guess. We are looking right now at a gentleman by Mr. Moran, who was appointed recently to the Federal Reserve, and he came out today. He was on television, and he said, "I have a major concern about the stability in the banks and the way they look at the equity positions and their debt positions," which falls into what we talked about, Brandon, when we talked about the repo market. This is the problem, the weakness, the concern that he has.
Now, who is that saying that? Who's saying that?
Moran, M-R-A-N, the guy who was just put into the Federal Reserve. Brilliant guy. And he just came out and said, this is a major concern that is out there right now.
So you're saying a guy at the Federal Reserve is concerned that the banks might be in bad financial condition. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is the way they run their numbers and the way their equity positions are looked upon, he felt needs to be upped and not be so low and leveraged. He felt there needed to be more stability. That's what he's saying, in how they look at their equities, their leveraging, and that ultimately is their lending.
Well, isn't that consistent with you and I talking about our concern with all the trash derivatives these banks are holding?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's some good people like him that are coming forward and saying, we need to stop this. This is exactly what happened in 2008. And the only reason we didn't lose the banking system is because the American people had to support it by the bailouts, everything that went out.
Now, the Federal Reserve chairman, he's done in what, May? When is he done?
April, May.
And who do you think Trump's going to pick to replace him?
I hope Waller. I think he's a sharp guy. Waller is a good man.
Okay.
I think he would be somebody who would be good. We need some truthful people in place because this number crunching that they do, we constantly get surprised with. And I just don't understand why President Trump is allowing some of these people that he has that are moving the numbers the way they have. It's surprising. That gal that they put in over there at the banking system at the Federal Reserve to be second in control, she's got to really crack the whip, because some of this stuff is just not making sense. And that's why Jamie Dimon came out a month or two back and talked about the debt and the problems with the debt and the issues at hand right now that makes him very concerned. So, the days ahead are not bright and rosy as everybody think they are. That's why people are concerned. I went to Los Angeles last week, and I was walking. I do a lot of power walking, and I'm walking through the streets there. Besides all the homeless people, every other step you take, which is disgusting, all these stores that are shut down. And I'm not talking in a bad neighborhood. I'm talking in the middle of Brentwood. Every other step, every other door is shut down. Businesses closed everywhere. It's like a third world nation there. I'm amazed. You either have the ultra rich that live behind fences, or even the lower and middle class people there. I just don't get it. The quality of life is just horrific.
Now, what are you hearing as far as the banks being low on reserves and they're going to need a liquidity injection?
That's exactly what Mirren was referring to, and exactly what Cook is talking about. You can't juggle your numbers to make yourself look good vis-a-vis leveraging your assets, and that's through the derivative market. You got to take the paper out. It's like when we talk to people and say, stop owning all your money in paper and own physical gold. And that is because of the fact that paper can be manipulated. And that's exactly, Brandon, what we saw today. When you talk about your side of things and the food side with freeze-dried foods and the need for people to get protected, a picture of food isn't the same thing as food. You can't just buy along with that situation. We saw how fast, when we talk about, and I'm doing a commercial for you, when we talk about freeze-dried food, look what happened within days of COVID. Yep. Shelves were empty in the grocery store within days, not weeks, days. So when we're talking about paper assets here financially in these markets, they could change the numbers with a snap of their finger and pick a number. Pick a number, any number. It's like, say, pick a card, any card. And then that's what Nvidia did today. That's what Enron did. That's what Lucent did. That's what WorldCom did. They made paper numbers happen, and then somebody finally figured it out. And you might say to yourself, boy, it took a long time for them to find out about that with Enron. And that's exactly why today what happened with Nvidia is sort of upsetting to those guys who are supporting an industry that caught them. The people that they are supporting legitimately, the AI industry and accounting, within seconds found the mistake in the numbers. And, look out for what you support, I guess. But that's why Enron took such a long time. And that's why WorldCom took such a long time. And that's why white-collar crimes and things take time to unravel. I think that whole world's going to change very quickly with AI. They'll be able to do accounting in minutes that took them months.
Wow.
And that's going to be a problem and a control problem for the industry. If somebody's honest in the SEC, maybe some of these billionaires and hedge fund people who are billionaires will start losing some money. Who knows? We'll see.
Look at this. Why did Bitcoin fall? Bitcoin falls below 88,000 for the first time since April. I don't own Bitcoin. I would never own Bitcoin. I think it's digits. I'm not convinced the CIA is not behind it. I don't even know. I have no idea who's behind this, but I don't like Bitcoin. I think it's stupid.
Bitcoin,
that's my opinion. People can love it.
You're right. And my opinion, as I said when we talked before, is like S&H green stamps on steroids. But they created a whole industry.
Green stamps, a lot of the audience has no idea. They have no idea what you're talking about.
The grocery store, because I'm prehistoric. Years ago, when you went to the store, you get all these things from Starbucks and everybody right now. They would give you these little S&H green stamps, and then you get a book and you'd pick out what you wanted out of it when you got all these stamps.
I remember them. You could get a card table. You could save up enough to get a card table and all kinds of stuff.
I got a radio. It fell apart 2 days, but in any regard.
By the way, I found a quick little. Don't let the stupid commercial pass. I actually found a quick little commercial for them. I remember the green stamps. Here we go. Here we go. Look at this, Logan.
We receive our big load at 3 a.m. on Wednesday morning. I'm I'm usually here by 7 o'clock. I'm Jerry Speck. I've been in the grocery business for 22 years. You may think my job is keeping this store. Actually, the most important thing of all is keeping customers. My customers don't want vegetables. They want fresh vegetables, and we buy them by the fieldful. Fresh fruit, too. There are thousands of items. Anyone can sell you meat, but it's getting the right grade, making sure it's trimmed right. These are the things that count and keep customers coming back. Things like friendliness and neatness count, too. In fact, everything's important in keeping my customers happy. That's why we give S&H green stamps. Not just any stamp, S&H green stamps. Like everything else we get for our customers, we pick the best stamp. Our volume went up when we started to give them. S&H green stamps fits into the way we do business, giving our customers the most for their money. That's why so many women keep coming back here. Men, too. Most men who shop will say, "Don't let me forget my S&H green stamps. My wife will shoot me if I go home without them." My customers know how much value they get when they redeem their S&H green stamps. That's why so many of the best merchants here in Los Angeles give S&H green stamps.
Now, when you would get a little pack of those,
A book.
and you put them in your book, and then when you filled the book up to a certain level, you would get, you could get some a card table. But if you wanted to keep going and get multiple books, the value of product kept going up and up and up and up. Then they went to doing that on a card. You'd swipe your card and get points, and you could cash it in for stuff.
That was the beginning of it.
But this was the beginning of it back in there. And yours, and the way that came up is because you were saying that Bitcoin to you is what?
S&H green stamps on steroids because of the fact that they created fake money. S&H green stamps was fake money. You saved your stamps and you went in and you bought things. They trade actually. S&H green stamps had stores that you went into to get things. I was just a kid, would you believe, Brandon? And at the end of the day, I went in there one time and my mother let me save enough of her stamps to buy a portable radio. And I took it in there and traded it in for the radio. But you're trading something that's non-existent into rewarding yourself with something that is hard asset. They use Bitcoin for money. Like we used S&H green stamps for money to buy products. The problem is that why Bitcoin is going to go down, and my prediction personally is it's going to go down dramatically, is when the government regulates you. As we talked about with these other companies that were regulated, you have financial reporting requirements. You can't just say, I'm a rich company because I have so many Bitcoins. You have to be able to report a financial responsibility based on dollars, not Bitcoins. So these companies that are so wealthy are going to have to restructure themselves to have cash and turn in some of their coins. So they'll be selling some off to raise capital to meet requirements to be in business. All of their managers, all of their people working there are going to have background checks and pass licensing tests to be in the business. All of the people out in the field are going to have to go through licensing with the SEC or the CFTC. When they do that, all of these things will go down in value, just like junk bonds did initially. So I believe that you're going to have a major restructuring of the entire crypto industry. Once it goes regulated, they're going to be responsible, and all the people and all the criminals that were doing business in it aren't going to be able to do business in it, and all the reporting is going to change, so the industry will change. But this was all done to give credibility to digital currency, Brandon. It's like we talked about with the great reset. They are talking about the credibility of this in order to be able to use stable coins to replace the U.S. dollar. And the U.S. dollar stays their number. It'll be a gradual situation where there'll be a reset, there'll be a devaluation, a revaluation, and eventually most of the young people under 50 don't use paper money at all anymore. They mostly either they've got their credit cards tied to their Apple phone, their iPhones, and other things, perhaps whatever type of phone they might have. But at the end of the day, they're using that for money. Nobody carries that cash anymore. Hardly in their age group. The older people do, and you're going to see that eventually get eaten up. But then the government will devalue the dollar, and in my opinion, it's going to be a very interesting period of time over the next 18 months we're all going to live through, and you're not going to solve that problem by, a lot of people say, well, I'll go to cash. No, you won't. That's not going to help you. That's why Mitch, who was on the show, I forget his last name,
Vexler.
stated
Mitch
you only have
Vexler.
There's only two things you need to do. You either have to own land or property, or you own gold, because any other thing other than a hard asset is all not a non-tangible. And that's pretty much the way they're trying to take the entire economy worldwide. The European Union is literally in the throes of going digital right now. China's already done it with the BRICS at the Great Reset in July. Japan's doing it right now. They say they're doing it to be able to control fraud and all this other stuff. Really what they're doing is a great way for them to check you. Privacy is going to be a thing of the past unless you own something that offers you it.
Wow.
Literally.
Yeah. All right. Now, I got a little shocked today. I don't want to sound like George H. Bush, who went to the grocery store. They're scanning milk, and he's like, oh, look at that. They scanned the milk. No, I've never seen a scanner, huh? Because he never went out, I guess, to go grocery shopping. So I don't want to sound like George H. Bush. Hey, Logan, can you find that video where George H. Bush was shocked by a scanner?
HW.
George H. I bet you I could find it faster than you, Logan. Go.
Oh, H?
I always do a little George H. Bush grocery store scanner. Oh, found it. Beat you, Logan. All right, here we go. Here we go. Watch this.
That famous campaign stop where Bush Sr. was discovering, if you will, the wonders of the supermarket scanner. He'd never seen one before.
Yeah.
Remember?
He'd never seen one before. He was shocked. I think he was running for president when that happened. There's George W. back there. Look how young George W. was back there. But yeah, that was not a good moment for him. He was like, that's kind of interesting. Look how that works. I think I actually found it here, the real one. Here we go. Oh, that's no good. We got to find a better one than that. But the point is, I don't want to be like George H., like I'm shocked. Okay, that's your cue to take that down. I'm not trying to be like George H., but I was a little shocked today when I found out that stamps are now 78 cents a piece. When did this happen? I think it happened like 4 months ago, I think. I'm going somewhere with this, folks. It's called inflation. Hold on, I'm going to show you the history of stamps. Okay, hold on. Watch this, though.
Well, it could soon cost more to send a mail, I should say. The U.S. Postal Service is trying to raise prices. Now, the proposed rates include a 5-cent increase for first-class forever stamps from 73 cents to 78 cents. Now, the price to send domestic postcards would jump from 56 cents to 62 cents. Also, the cost to send metered letters and international letters and postcards would increase by 5 cents.
Wow, I had no idea. So we got some stamps today, and it was 78 cents a stamp. And I'm like, what? 78 cents to send a letter. And I said to one of the guys in the control room, I said, I remember when stamps were like 10 cents. Michael, going back to the, to the Great Revolution, you probably remember when they were, what, Michael? Let's see here. I go all the way back here. I guess you remember them back in 1863. You could mail one, I guess, 6 cents to mail a letter in 1863. And then it dropped to 4 cents.
I remember when stamps were 4 cents.
But then it went to 2 cents. Did it really go from 8? Yeah, I guess so. 6 cents.
So it's gone up 20 times in value in my lifetime.
1925, 2 cents, 28, 32. Okay, 32, it's at 3 cents. 52 is at 3 cents. What do you remember it at?
I remember it at 4 cents.
Okay, 4 cents is 58. Okay. Then I come along, about the age to know what's going on, born in 69. So about 74, 75 was when I would, oh yeah. So I remember when stamps were 10 cents. I do remember that. Okay. And then look at this, 75, it goes to 13 cents, 15 cents, 20 cents. Let's get into my high school days. 22 cents in 85, 25 cents in 1988. Okay. But look at this. Watch these go up. Okay, this is inflation. And they're probably still not charging enough, to be honest with you, because I think Post office probably is losing money, but that's not due to the price of the stamp. I think that's due to mismanagement. But here we are, 78 cents. I mean, this is a perfect example of inflation, right?
Exactly.
You know, I wonder if people could buy those forever stamps and hold on to them. And if a stamp goes to being $1 or $2, you have forever stamps. You could start trading stamps as a form of currency. I'm not kidding. That kind of stuff would happen under hyperinflation, would it not?
Yep, it sure would. Another industry that's going to go through a metamorphosis in our benefit will be the cellular phone industry. If you want to talk about being overcharged, cellular phone business is probably, they make a fortune. That's why they give you full free phones and all that. In my opinion, I think that industry is going to go through a whole cutback because all these other companies that are opening up are like so much dramatically cheaper. And it's the same service, and people just get nervous because they think, well, if I leave one of these companies, then all of a sudden my ability is going to go down. I got news for you. I dumped a big company I was with for 20 years, and I went with one of these little mini companies, and guess what? No difference.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
No difference. That's it.
By the way, let me add one more. Here we go. The U.S. Labor Department officially publishes the September job reports 48 days late. The U.S. added 119,000 jobs in September above expectations of 53,000. The unemployment rate rose to 4.4% above expectations of 4.3%. Unemployment is at the highest since October of 2021.
If you look at the numbers on where the jobs were added, what was concerning out of those numbers is normally we look for good approaching numbers for the business industry, retail, new businesses, et cetera, and those were negative, big time. The retail industry, the industries that they normally would hire people in, big time down. Government hiring up, strangely enough. And some of the technical industries were up. Actually, the housing industry, they were hiring, which is good to see. But the retail, what should concern people is the retail industry and the small business area significantly down, and that is not good.
All right, so we're going into a recession. Is that what I'm hearing? Are we already in one?
I think the United States indirectly has been in a recession for many years. Nobody's ever called it that, just because the numbers are all smoked. All we ever talk about and all we ever find and all you ever report, and we've reported together and other people have pointed out, like people like Mitch, is the smoking of numbers. You know, pick a number. You want a number? We'll create a number. And the people who have gotten ultimately rich are the bond and fund traders. They make a fortune. But strangely enough, like I said before, how come every time there's a crash in the market, millions of people lose money? If everybody is on top of this and all this reporting we watch every day and these geniuses are on TV and all this great stuff, the market collapses and people got to go back to work. Why? Why? Because the people in the industry don't lose. It's the people who invest in it that lose. And that's why we talk about security and protection and physical assets, because this type of stuff is not going to improve, especially when they go digital. You're going to lose your identity because you'll have no control. You won't need a wallet. You have your phone.
Wow. All right. Thank you, Michael. If you want to get your free packet of information, worldviewgold.com, worldviewgold.com. Find out about numismatic. That's 1933 and older. Considered antique. Collectibles, comes with some privacy. Otherwise, fresh bullion, silver eagles, gold eagles, or putting gold into your IRA. All the information can be found at worldviewgold.com, worldviewgold.com, or simply call 1-877-864-1072, 1-877-864-1072. We'll be right back after this break.